Hello and welcome on this feast day, the Feast of Saint Scholastica. Welcome to our panel discussion on the value for the year, love of learning. Well, I hope you have already had a chance to view our pre-recorded session with our stellar lineup of alumni panelists. And today you'll have a chance to interact with them through the Q&A function on the webinar. And we've also got quite a few questions that have already come in. And so we're going to start off with the questions that have come in. But please, if you've got questions right now, just type them in, send them to us, and we will get to them as we go on. So we're on here for about an hour. So I'm sure there are going to be lots of questions and a really interesting conversation. So again, welcome. Oh, and I should say, by the way, I am Dr. Kevin Vaughan, Associate Professor in Theology and Religious Studies here at the college, and it is my delight to be the host and moderator for this event. We also have Dr. David Mark working the Q&A for us. Thank you so much. And so he'll be taking your questions as they come in. And of course, a big thanks goes to everyone who has worked diligently in preparation for this event and for all of the events happening today. I think of especially the Mission Integration Board led by Sister Kathleen Del Monte, and of course all of the tireless volunteers, those working on the tech side of things, and all the people who are involved in putting this together. And a big hearty thank you goes to our alumni panelists. Thank you so much for spending your time and sharing your wisdom with all of us. And of course, thanks to all of you for joining us here. So I think this is going to be a really important event, and really there would be no event without you. And lastly, but definitely not last, is of course for all the sisters. Thank you so much for your witness to the values. Thank you so much for the heritage that you have bestowed upon us all here. So anyhow, without further ado, I'd like to get into our panel and have our panelists introduce themselves. And so I'm going to start off with Nafisa, and then I'm going to work to Josh, and then we'll end off with Malvern. Okay, so we'll go in that order. So Nafisa, would you mind just saying something a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Nafisa Osman. I graduated from Scholastica in 2017 with a degree in marketing and management. Currently live in the Twin Cities, and I'm a homeownership advisor at Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity. Okay.
Great, thank you, Nafisa. Josh, you say something a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Robak. I also graduated from St. Scholastica in 2017. I am now living in Grand Forks, where I'm a medical student, about to finish up. I'm in my final year of medical school here and applying to psychiatry residencies. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Josh. Malvern.
Hi, everyone. My name is Malvern Madondo, and I am currently a PhD student at Emory University in Atlanta, studying computer science. I graduated from St. Scholastica in 2019 with a double major in mathematics and computer science. So yeah, I'm glad to be back again virtually.
And thank you, Malvern, for joining us from Hobbiton again.
Yes, it's fun
the weather
in New Zealand, so
it looks great. The weather looks fantastic. Well, again, thank you all. So we've got quite a few questions that came in ahead of time here, and so I'm going to start with those questions. And as I mentioned before, Dr. Mark will come in with questions as they come on. So there are quite a few questions regarding why you chose the College of Saint Scholastica. Like, why did you come here to begin with? What made you choose this institution? And there were some questions too regarding, like, especially for those of you who had to move far from home to get here. So just in general, why did you choose the College of Saint Scholastica? And for those of you who had to move far from home, what made you take that lengthy trek to come here? Does anyone want to start us off?
I can go first. Yeah, as I mentioned in the previous talk, I'm originally from Zimbabwe, or I'm from Zimbabwe. I guess for me, like, So a bit of like personal background. My family is Catholic, so I was born Catholic, raised Catholic, and I kind of wanted to continue that kind of like same environment when I went to college. And of course, I was also trying to find like schools where I might get good funding opportunities so that the cost would not be so prohibitive for me to continue my education. So I think St. Scholastica stood out to me primarily because first of all, it was a Catholic school. It was also a small school. I was trying to look for a small school where I might get like lots of interactions and engagements with professors and other students. So sort of like looking for a close-knit community. That's what I was after mostly. So I also considered, of course, universities back home in Zimbabwe, but when the opportunity to actually study abroad, presented itself, I was like, I can always study in Zimbabwe anytime, but going to the US will be a completely different experience. So I got that opportunity to CSS, and one of the great learning opportunities I've had. I'm not sure if there were any other follow-up questions to that or specific things I can talk more about, but that was about it.
Malvern, I do have a follow-up question. How long of a flight is it from Zimbabwe?
Let's say, I think it's you need at least 2 days. My first flight. So I mentioned last time that like coming to say was actually my first time getting on a plane. So I think I had 3 connections altogether. So my flights were, I think, maybe about 30 hours.
Wow, that is quite the trek. Thanks, Malvern. I appreciate that. Nafisa and Josh, what made you decide on the College of St. Scholastica?
For me, I did it overnight, and I just like fell in love with campus and the people that I had met, and meeting all of these professors and people in like the diversity office. I really felt at home when I had first came and did my overnight. So that was like the big push for me to decide to make my choice to come to Scholastica.
Great, thank you, Nafisa.
And in my experience, it was a little unique. Both my parents are graduates from St. Scholastica, so I was, I guess, primed from an early age to, visit the campus or come visit my grandparents who at the time were living near Duluth. So I just really liked the area a lot, and also got to like St. Scholastica's campus and the welcoming atmosphere from a pretty early age.
That's great. Thank you, both of you, all 3 of you. I think we have a question from the Q&A, so we'll turn to Dr. Mark.
All right, thank you. We have a question coming in from Eva, and this is for you, Josh. Josh, in the pre-recorded conversation, you mentioned how you played on the men's soccer team during your time at the college. As a student athlete, Eva is a student athlete. I was wondering how you managed your time between school and sports.
That's an excellent question, and congrats on playing. I don't know what sport it is exactly, but whatever sport you play, Eva. I would say I entered college I had to work on my study habits and kind of, especially wanting to go into some sort of graduate school, needing to like designate specific times in order to take care of things. So actually like laying out a schedule for myself is something that I find very helpful. And sometimes that involves, giving up on certain things, but also working in time, for yourself and not only studying, because in my experience, at least, like whether it's setting aside time with friends, loved ones, doing something physically active, that helps me study a little bit better. So hopefully that's at least my experience, but everyone has different ways to do that.
We got a lot of questions actually about work-life balance, and so I'm curious, Nafisa and Malvern, do you have any insights into balancing your academic work with extracurricular activities? Because I know, Nafisa, you were quite involved. outside of the classroom. And just kind of curious if you have any thoughts on that.
For me, yeah, I was super busy in college. And I think the most important thing was I always designated. I had everything on a calendar and like schedule. That was the big thing that helped me navigate throughout the 4 years. And also going to like the tutoring center, that was really helpful. Just trying to find that balance with everything that you're doing. Make sure you schedule everything correctly so you're not burning yourself out. So calendar like was my best friend throughout everything.
I guess for me, what I found helpful in my first year was meeting with my deep interest advisor, who was my advisor at the time, David Vaughan. So I kind of took a look at my the curriculum for both the computer science and the mathematics program, and I kind of created like a 4-year plan of the classes that I would take for each semester. Then the way I was balancing it out each semester was that I would like, for instance, I knew that I was going to take X number of classes, then that might give me a certain amount of time to kind of like, do other things. Then when it came to doing like, things outside class, you kind of like fit in nicely. I played volleyball once or twice, the intramural volleyball. Then I also kind of like engaged in a lot of, mostly, I guess they were a bit too native, but I was involved with programming competitions for computer science, even went to one with David Mark here. And also did some math Olympiads with Luther Kiyosan that were held like typically every fall. So what I found helpful trying to balance all that was, first, if I knew like what I wanted to accomplish at the end of the semester, then that would kind of put things into perspective and give me like more freedom to kind of like explore new things. Then on any during any given week, like you have blocked time periods for classes and so forth. Then during the times when I don't have classes, I might be working. I work at the help desk, and if I wasn't working, then I would just like chill, relax, or study and do other things. I was never really good at following up with calendars or fixed things because I also procrastinated a lot. So I just kind of like pretty much almost did things. I think deadlines pushed me quite a bit in that regard. But yeah, somehow it worked out. So.
Deadlines can sometimes be our best friends, can't they? I hear a lot about goal setting and planning. And as I mentioned, we got a lot of questions come in about work-life balance. And there's one here I'm looking at, which I think is really quite poignant. And was there ever any time when you felt overwhelmed? Like this was too much? And if so, how did you deal with that? How did you deal with that sense of being overwhelmed?
You go ahead, Nafisa.
For me, I feel like half of college I was pretty overwhelmed and stressed out. It was just, I feel like that's just a state of being that you're in. One thing that helped me is instead of thinking about all the work that I have to do, I would just write it all down and then just start putting it in order from what is easiest to do versus what is hardest to do. Because when I physically see all the things that I need to do, it helped me balance it out instead of imagining everything and giving myself so much anxiety. If I write it all down, then it's so much more easier to be like, all right, what needs to be done now? What needs to be done? What can I do next week? What's due to like tomorrow versus what is due in 2 days? So that I can start assessing what is top priority versus what is low priority. So instead of living in this ball of like, oh my God, I have 50 million things to do. When I sat down and wrote it down, I'm like, it's actually 6 things that I need to do instead of all of what it was. And now I can compartmentalize what I need to do. And so honestly, writing it out, talking it out, just having somebody to help you look at it just makes it so much more easier instead of you just balling up all that anxiety on your own. help is like the biggest thing. Having people to talk to, whether it's your professors, your friends, tutors, just having somebody help you look at things just makes life so much easier, especially in college with if you're just doing school or if you're doing extracurriculars, whether it's sport, club, job, having somebody help you look at things as well.
Thank you, Nafisa. I mean, I think, we often, we approach our work as if everything was supposed to happen to us at exactly the same time. And as you're explaining, you break it down into steps and you see that, no, it's a process. You can do smaller tasks and all that. And changing perspective is so helpful. Thank you. Josh and Malvern, any responses to that?
I guess it's exactly what Nafisa said for me as well. I found it very helpful starting small. Typically, like when I was overwhelmed, it was because I kind of like thought I had to accomplish like all this much. And so one thing that I found helpful was when it came at least to classes was breaking things down, as Nafisa said, just starting with small things that I could do. Like if I had like a homework with 10 questions, I would just like maybe start by reading the questions first, then think about it a little, then go back, start answering one by one and so forth. Then sometimes it also kind of happen like as a side effect of like, comparing myself to others, then I'll feel like pressure that, okay, I probably should do like a whole lot of things, or I need to kind of like, do more than, typical to kind of like, get things done. So sometimes I would just step back and like think on exactly what the problem was and what might be the simplest solution to that problem.
Thank you, Malvern.
I would entirely agree with what they've expressed, especially like writing things down and having a sense of not feeling so overwhelmed anymore after doing so. And I would say I've also used like finding things that help you unwind or relax or kind of refresh yourself. So for me, either sitting down, watching a television series or going and exercising, if like recognizing that, you do need a break and you'll actually be able to function better if you take that time and do those things that refresh yourself.
Josh, that kind of gets to another something else that was raised. We talk a lot about organizing and structuring our work, but we are more than work, as the motto of the Benedictines, ora et labora. So there's labora, but there's also this ora thing. There's leisure time, there's downtime as well. There's time for the rest of our lives. When in terms of your structuring of your work and of your time, was there that intentional structuring of your downtime? Was there an intentional structuring of, this is when I'm not going to do work, this is when I'm going to spend time with friends, this is when I'm going to spend time for myself? Did that factor into your planning at all?
Definitely. I would generally structure that in with like exercising for an hour or what have you every single day, but also like having so much structure, I feel like could also have its drawbacks at times. So allowing for some spontaneity and not letting yourself get down on yourself if, an opportunity to hang out with someone just arises. You can't do that all the time and put off your work all the time, but also not beating yourself up over having some of those spontaneous, components of fun in your life.
These are wise words for not just people in college. So I think anyone can benefit from listening to all this.
Should we take one from the Q&A, Kevin?
Let's do it. Yep.
All right, this one comes from Heidi Blunt. What was your most eye-opening experience moving from high school to college? And I would say any of you take it.
I guess for me, it was a big kind of like jump from a Zimbabwean high school experience to an American college experience. I guess some of the first surprises that I got were like, I could call, professors by their first name. You don't do that to an adult in Zimbabwe. Someone will jump you. But Yeah, I think that was quite interesting, like just all Kevin, yeah, so that definitely like surprised me for a bit. And the other thing too was that I did not have to participate in sports. At my high school, it was kind of like compulsory. Everyone like, you did your academics and you were supposed to be involved in sports somehow. Not that I didn't like, I didn't like sports or anything, but I knew where my strengths were. So that was also like one good thing, I guess, that came up from like, having been exposed to a different environment altogether.
Thank you, Malvern. Any particular, for the other panelists, any particular transition issues or?
I would say one thing that was a good experience for me was that I came from a private high school with a pretty homogenous set of people and ideas. But even though Scholastica is pretty small with all the different cultural groups, like Latino Student Union in particular was one that I attended frequently. It just allowed me to experience different cultures, different experiences from where kind of my background was, which I think really benefited just kind of my worldview in general.
I have another question that came in here from Heidi Blunt. And what was your most effective study strategies?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can go. What are you going to go?
Go ahead,
Okay. So for me, it depended with the subject. I found that like for when I was taking mathematics classes or computer science classes, I pretty much learned most by doing things. So doing a lot of practice problems helped, like during my study time. And so I try to do this like at least for a couple hours every day. I would set time aside typically during the evening to just get some studying in. And that kind of helped in the long run because I didn't have to wait until like there was a final or something like that. Then for some literary courses, for instance, I took Kevin's theology class, and yeah, that was a lot of reading. And usually what I found helpful was just finding, I like studying in the library quite a lot, and just having a quiet environment for that would help, because sometimes you had like long texts that you needed to read, that would help. But for each study session, I always kind of like start off with like a plan of things that I wanted to get done by the end of that study session. So it might be, well, I want to solve problems 1 to 5, and then maybe I want to write code for this and that, and kind of doing that, like for instance 30 minutes for one task, then switch over to another task help. I realized early on that like multitasking wasn't really helping me quite a bit, so I figured that like if I just focus on one thing at a time, then switch completely to another thing, it helped. Right now, as a PhD student, like we spend quite a lot of time just studying things, and you kind of learn how to quickly just go through. For instance, if you have a bunch of papers that you have to read, and in some cases you also have to review those papers. So coming up, like if you start off reading some sort of like questions in the beginning, for instance, you read the title, then like, okay, I wonder what this might be about, or what are they trying to do? And then at the end, when you're trying to reflect on that reading, you ask yourself, okay, if I was going to do this, what can I do to improve it? Or what could I do different if I kind of like carried out the same things? So it just depends with the thing. So you just apply like different strategies as you see fit to kind of get things done.
One addition I would have is that I definitely procrastinated early on in college, and I found as I progressed. I was able to be both more successful and feel a little bit less stressed by keeping up with the work and kind of studying in chunks rather than waiting till a night or two before the exam and trying to, figure everything out to study and score and learn well enough to get by. So I thought that was one thing that I improved throughout college that decreased my stress and allowed me to do a little bit better.
Yep, I would agree with Josh. Procrastination is just awful. And just at least breaking things up, looking at the deadlines, just start spanning it out pretty early on. Just makes your life so much easier than freaking out and then studying for like a midterm that's been like a month and a half, 2 days before. Just start like understanding each concept as it goes. It makes life so much easier.
Thank you. And related to this question, and again from the pre-recorded questions, what do you do when you're in a class and you just don't find it motivating? I know it's hard to imagine that there might be classes at CSS where one wouldn't feel motivated, but I'm sure some people might find themselves in that position. Any thoughts on that? Like just lack of motivation, you don't find the material interesting, but you got to get through it.
That's a pretty tough question. I feel like, and maybe that's reason for the pause, but it's a very good one. I think in general, trying to find some sort of little pearl, maybe even convincing yourself that it'll be helpful, or even focusing on the temporary nature of it. If it came down to it and you really can't find anything about it that you enjoy or will find useful in the future, knowledge that, at most it's going to be a couple months. Maybe that could help you get through it a little bit better and motivate you to, it's not going to keep going on forever.
I'd say it probably depends with the situation of the student. So if it's not interesting or motivating because you've done it before, or you pretty much like know what the subject is all about, in those cases, I think that maybe trying to help or find another student who is in the same class and is probably like, trying to learn those kind of materials might help you. Like, sometimes you actually find that, there are some things you do not know when someone else asks you, or when you're trying to teach someone else. Then the other case is if it's not motivating because you do not necessarily know exactly what's going on or what the course is like all about, you don't have any sort of like background in that area. Pretty much like I had a class like that early on when I started grad school, and one thing that I did was because I did not have the background like for that course, it was like a systems programming course, and so I did two things. First was I kind of like looked to my peers and found someone else who was in the same boat. So pretty much found someone who was also struggling just like me, so that we could struggle together. And that kind of like, when you have someone else who is kind of like in the same boat, it kind of gives you some sense of comfort that maybe like, you're not alone in that case. Then you do not have to stop there. You also like have to actually kind of like find a remedy for that problem. And in my case, that was going to a lot of like TA office hours, going to the professor's office hours. And when, if that kind of like help me in that sense, for instance, when trying to do like assignments, whatnot, I'll just like, find online resources. There was always something like interesting, like, there are lots of resources on YouTube, whatnot, that could at least help me understand things that are not as interesting. So I guess that's, I think that's from my initial thoughts on that. So.
Thank you. I'm so glad, Josh, you could join us again. It's great.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know. My Wi-Fi cut out for whatever reason.
That's fine. It's a life on Zoom, right?
Should we take another question from the Q&A?
Sounds good.
All right. So I think this is from one of the Dignitas classes. How did your time at CSS shape the way you accessed your job or career you have today?
Um, for me, it completely molded why I'm in the work I am today. I was heavily involved in diversity and social justice clubs, and being in that realm made me want to do the work that I do now, which is more community based and helping my community become homeowners and gain their equity. So being a part of Scholastica and being a part of all those social justice clubs shifted my views on where I wanted to be in the workforce today.
I guess for me, a few things that kind of helped me get to where I am today was first off, I did a lot of what's the term, like outside class. I worked on a lot of like projects, typically like with the faculty in the department. In my case, I worked a lot with Tom Gibbons in the computer science department. He always had like one or two projects, like from robotics or to machine learning and sorts. And the way that I kind of like, I just reach out to him and say, hey, I kind of want to learn more about this. Do you have anything that you have that I can work on, whatnot? And that kind of like, still like a lot of the projects that we worked on together and even published at some conference. And that actually opened many doors to me because I found that like when I was interviewing for internships or whatnot, they'd ask about those projects and want to know more about what I did, what I accomplished, like some things that I found challenging or interesting while doing those projects. And so eventually, like, when those experiences kind of accumulated, and first of all, I always knew that I wanted to go to grad school, and but when I actually got here, I found that like a lot of the things that I'm doing now, like those interests started off like sometime in college while doing those kind of like projects, and also like while doing those internships, I also found and learned new things. So it kind of all built towards that. Then outside kind of like classes, whatnot, like being part of clubs like the computer club, the mathematics club, also kind of like helped nurture some of those interests and kind of kept me on this path. Yeah, just a variety of things.
And for me, pursuing or hoping to pursue medicine at the time, I would say all the professors with being so open to having students come in and like come to their office hours, actually take the time to help teach you and also give you guidance. I feel like St. Scholastica does a really good job at the health sciences, especially, and kind of they have people there like Doc C previously when I was there, and just kind of being able to walk you through the steps, because there are kind of these steps, tests you need to take, courses you need to take over the course of that. So kind of helping you meet those requirements in order to pursue your interests.
Here's another question in the Q&A from Samantha. Mentally, physically, and emotionally, what would you say is the areas in which you grew the most over the years?
For me, it was physically. Freshman 15 really hit me hard. But yeah, I think like I pretty much grew in all those dimensions really. I found that like when I started college, like you still have like a bit of like that kind of like curiosity that you come with from high school, like oh yeah, you're finally in college, and you've watched all these movies about American college experiences, so you always have like lots of things that you want to explore. So mentally, I definitely like grew, and mostly because of like the challenges that I exposed myself to and that I kind of like found along the way. And I also kind of like well, at least I think I grew emotionally. I hope so. But yeah, it's I think definitely I'd say mentally, because that was pretty much like most of my college experiences, so the challenges that I encountered and whatnot. So yeah, don't know about the others.
Um, for me, I think I grew mentally and emotionally the most, um, especially with the transition going from high school to college is a lot. And utilizing the resources that are available at Scholastica, I had like therapy sessions for the first time, just dealing with like my new emotions and new feelings, and taking in all those skills that I learned in that time really helped me evolve as I became more of an adult, leaving college, becoming going into the real world. And I think those are the aspects that I grew the most.
Mhm.
I would definitely say emotionally for me personally. I like going from living with my parents to living on my own and kind of having people that I knew somewhat, but not any of my really close high school friends or anything in my new spot. Um, Growing my friend groups and kind of being willing to open up to new people about how I'm feeling. And, one course that I took, which you would think wasn't related to what I'm doing now, but I found really helpful in this regard, is I took a poetry course that really, I feel like, helped me develop some introspection that I kind of lacked before, and getting to know myself a little bit better in that way. So I would say emotionally is the realm that I grew most during college.
Thank you. Here's another question from um, Dignitas class. What do you wish you would have taken more advantage of while you were in college?
I would say one thing that I miss maybe most about Duluth or living in that region is the access to outdoor opportunity. So I would say that's one thing that I think I did take some advantage of, but I wish I would have even more, because living where I do now, the difference in what you can do outside and kind of that outdoor access is so substantial, that difference. So that's something that I really miss.
Yeah, I echo that as well. In Atlanta, there's no Lake Superior or really any big lake to speak of within driving distance. So I think that I also like outdoor basically posted like all these weekly or monthly events where they would take students out to a lot of things. Sometimes I would just sign up and but never really got to go anyway, because I was sometimes just too anxious to go out into the cold. It was mostly winter things that I wanted to try, like snowshoeing and all that. But yeah, I think if I had to redo college all over again, that's probably like one thing that I would try to do more of, be more involved with, particularly winter activities. I kind of regret not doing a whole lot of those. So.
For me, I think the one thing I kind of wish I did more is go to more sporting events, which is not something I did as much. They seem so fun, but it was cold in Duluth a lot of the time, so I didn't really want to be outside. But that's one thing I would have liked to take more advantage of.
Great. And Nafisa, here's a question to you from Emmy. How did you know that you wanted to change your major?
So I started off as a bio pre-med, and then I realized halfway into the semester, I don't like biology and I'm not good at it. So I was like so stressed out, and I think I'd called my mom and I was like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, this is not good for you. Just stop thinking, like start switching and thinking about what you want to do. So winter break hit and I started looking through all the majors that were available at Scholastica. And I was teetering between social work and marketing management. And then I took a management course, intro to management, and I loved it. And that's how I decided to just take the leap and switch. But definitely just think about it, take your time, really assess like what you might enjoy about it. And if you don't like the classes that you're in, especially this was Gen Bio. I knew I was not going to make it any farther. If I can't make it past this one step, So just take your time and really assess if you enjoy this, because this is the thing you're going to do for the rest of your life. And if you hate it, step one, then don't continue on.
Great, thank you. And here's a question for you, Malvern. Did you bring the values that you learned here back home or to your current, role as a PhD student at Emory? And if so, in what ways?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, I think like for me, like some of the values really play a key role even now as a PhD student, especially the love of learning. I think, it's pretty much like what I do, and, a big part of my identity is a researcher. Is something that we're always trying to kind of like integrate in almost everything that we do. And it kind of sort of like ties together with a lot of, or some of the other values, for instance, community. Like, of course, here it's mostly like a community of other, like-minded researchers who are working in different fields. There's always something new to learn every day, and you only need to look around and ask someone like, "No, hey, what do you do?" And then you will be completely amazed by things that are going on around you. And still, you have to kind of like hold that kind of respect for everyone else that you interact with and whatnot. So I think like right now it's probably, I'll actually say that Emory is probably a hidden Benedictine college. Like, it's things that like, all the values that we learned at CSS, they're still alive and well here at this stage. And just that, they are not named Benedictine values. Yeah, they're still a big part of what I do right now.
Great, and here's one for you, Josh. Do you always know you wanted to go to medical school? And if not, what led you in that direction?
I didn't know right away. It was definitely something I considered early on, and was like, I guess I started biology and was kind of keeping it open, but I also really liked English and writing. So that was kind of waffling back and forth, but with discussing kind of both my interests with advisors and realizing like, medicine having a very unique opportunity to incorporate like helping people very directly in a very direct way, and seeing those results, but also kind of this biological background. That's what ultimately made me pursue it. But I honestly, I think for me, I'm someone who could have been happy doing multiple different things. And I think that's part of the reason I struggled a little bit, because I did enjoy multiple aspects, but it was kind of coming to terms with the fact that a decision has to be made. I need to figure out, need to decide I'm majoring in this. This is what I'm doing. And that kind of forced it, but it helped ease my worries, realizing about myself that I would be happy kind of doing multiple different things, I truly think.
Great. Here's another question that can go to any of you. And you mentioned a little bit about self-care as a student, whether that's gaining the freshman 15 or as a student athlete. But how has that changed, now that you graduated? How do you manage self-care with your current roles?
I didn't do as much like self-care in undergrad, I think. Well, what I really found helpful was being part of communities. For instance, I was very involved with campus ministry, and that gave me a lot of friends who would I would go out to events with, or just hang out at retreats with, and so forth. But some things that I also kind of did was try to kind of explore my other interests, just outside class. I mentioned last time that I actually didn't realize that I like going to symphonies until my Dignitas advisor gave me some tickets to an orchestra thing. So that also kind of became something I got interested into over time. And I was also part of things as you can tell by my background, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. And when I discovered Kevin is also big into Tolkien's works and C.S. Lewis and whatnot, and he had all these kind of events that he organized, reading and whatnot, and he had lots of food. Food is always a good incentive for those kind of things. So like, I kind of like, went along with and started or took part in those kind of like things that I found interesting outside, computer science or mathematics.
I think a big thing for me moving out of undergrad was maintaining some sort of physical activity, because I kind of grew up an athlete, then moved to college, was still an athlete. And then there's some sort of loss there. I'm no longer an athlete. So I ran Grandma's Marathon the next summer, and kind of have really taken up running as, even throughout medical school, no matter how busy I am, how much I have to do, I at least take 20, 30 minutes or more to go on a run every day. And I feel like that is like my time to think, to take for myself, to exert myself. And I don't know, that's something that I've relied on heavily in med school.
For me now, it's definitely changed. I prioritize self-care more than I did in in college. I feel like I had more FOMO back in college, and I just was like, I want to hang out with everybody. I want to do this, that, and the third. And sometimes I would just fully burn myself out. Now I make it such a big priority. I create boundaries when it comes to work. I work from home. So sometimes I could just trickle in and I'm working like 2 hours past my time. So I make sure I create boundaries, and I like to meditate, which is something I picked up a lot more in this pandemic. And I make that a priority. Journaling, skincare, just very relaxing things. I like to watch TV and chill, watch a movie, maybe FaceTime my friends, hang out, like just chit chat. Just a way to unwind after your day and everything.
This could go to any of you. Was there a particular faculty or staff member you connected with, and are you still in touch with that person?
The professor of the poetry course I alluded to was Ryan Vine, and I've not kept in touch, on a regular basis, but here and there I've contacted him. And, honestly, I might not be a good example. I don't know about the other two here, but something I need to work on is maintaining. As distance grows, I have a hard time, through technology and through different means, maintaining connection with people. So that's something that I struggle with in general and haven't done as well as maybe I could or should.
Yeah, I'm also in the same boat. I haven't done or did my best, I keep in touch with people. But Luther Kilson, he was my co-advisor in the mathematics program. We've kept in touch quite since I graduated. I even went camping with him once in the Boundary Waters. That was fun. But yeah, he's been very involved. Even now, he's been interested in my research, what I'm doing, whatnot. Even wrote a recommendation for me for a fellowship, which I actually won last year. Yeah, he's been very central, right now, even just outside my normal research.
I'm same with you guys. Really haven't kept up with my advisor. That's the person I connected with the most during my time. I've seen him a couple years ago, but I haven't really kept up as much. But he was super impactful with my journey in marketing and management, and helped me out so much with getting my coursework in order. He was my favorite teacher to have. It's hilarious. I love him so much. But yeah, I'll put in more effort now to try to contact him and see him.
Which of the Benedictine values has stuck with you most since graduating?
For me, sorry, Malvern. For me, I would say
it's good.
It would be between stewardship and love of learning personally. I think I have a great love of nature and kind of wanting to preserve or take care of what we have. And also, through medicine and medical school, I've had to embrace a love of learning, and I do genuinely enjoy learning about a variety of topics. But maybe even stewardship. Like, I'm currently outside of medical school, a part of this Climate Psychiatry Alliance, talking about the mental health effects of climate change, and like whether it's floods and PTSD or heat waves leading to increased aggression or violence. It's something that I'm continually working on. So I would say that's like an intersection of two things professionally that I'm extremely passionate and interested about, and stewardship falls right in line with that.
For me, it's been the level of learning, as I said, almost at every turn. It just feels like one of the biggest things for me has always been learning things and applying them. Right now, like I'm primarily like doing my research at the intersection of three fields like computer science, mathematics, and computational neuroscience. So there's always like things to learn there, and sometimes I find myself even also checking with my advisor, and we're trying to figure things out together, and they're all of these mysteries that we're trying to unravel. So it's such a big part of doing research, and outside that, of course, there are other things that I'm always finding myself interested in doing, outside my normal research. I've also picked up biking recently. I got a bike at the beginning of the pandemic, just so I could actually start going outdoors more. And it's just something that you just find yourself falling back to when things that you normally do on a daily basis end up taking most of your time, that you want to explore other things. And that's why I try to find things that I'm interested in learning or doing, and carry on with that. Also, community has been a big thing for me. Finding people that I can connect with, and people that I've enjoyed with before, and making those new connections. That's it.
For me, it would be community. With the work that I do, with the field that I'm in, community is very important. And the power of how community works, supporting each other, and I see it firsthand, and working to create wealth and equity within a community is really important to me. So I think that's the Benedictine value that I've taken and I'm utilizing throughout my life.
Here's a question from Dr. McDonald. Dr. McDonald says, happy feast day, and thank you panelists for participating in our celebration. What single piece of inspiring advice can you share with us?
My piece of advice for students now is have fun, ask for help when needed, and enjoy this time of development. You're between the age of 18 and 22. Enjoy this period of growth. You're okay to make mistakes. You're okay to fall down, but just remember to get back up during this time. These are formative years, and make the most of them.
I would say, in addition to that, I agree entirely with what Nafisa said, but don't also, you have goals that you want to accomplish, and going to St. Scholastica will hopefully help you accomplish those goals, but don't get so fixated on that ending that you're not enjoying your day-to-day and taking those time to have fun. Being spontaneous, or allowing yourself to be sometimes. I would say that that's my biggest token of advice.
Yeah, I also said that I think be involved with your goals, with people that you want to get support from, whatnot. This probably means at least the way I see it is that, like, you only have, I don't know, 4 years, 3 years for some, and it'll go by pretty fast. So each semester try to, do more of things that will actually bring you closer to maybe where you want to be when you graduate, like, kind of having that vision of following your graduation. This is where you want to go, this is what you want to do. You might not even know what you want to do then, and in that case, just be involved with things that you already have going on right now, be it in sports or, like, classes that you might be taking. One of my friends always told me, because this was one of my weaknesses, like when I went to presentations and stuff, it was like, ask a question, even if it's naive, like, ask something, like, if you don't want to ask, like, in front of people, you can always go to the office hours, or you can ask, like, in private, or send an email or whatnot, but just ask something, and it means you become more involved with, whatever the learning that is going on, or whatever is, you have. So yeah, become more involved with yourself and with the things that you want to do, and the things will just fall into place then.
Well, thank you, panelists. This has been a fabulous conversation. Thank you, all of our viewers. Thank you for your questions, those who sent your questions in ahead of time, and also those of you who posted them just now during this talk. Just a big warm thank you to our panelists for your time and your wisdom. We are at a time, we covered a lot of really good stuff here, and wish you all the best with your future. And we're so glad that you were able to find important value in your education here at the college. And we hope that everyone viewing can work off of your example and find that meaning and value for themselves. So again, a big heartfelt thank you on behalf of Mission Integration Board. On behalf of the entire college, thank you, dear alumni. And so with that, this concludes our panel for today, and in honor of the love of learning, our value for the year. And so we wish you all a very, very happy Feast of Saint Scholastica, and do look out for other events that are happening today. And I hope that you can all find some rest, as maybe perhaps good work as well today, and wish you all the best, sincerely. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye.